Hello and welcome to video number 5, and we're going to dive in and talk about the blueprint for video number 1. So we touched base briefly before on this, but we're going to dive deeper. So I want to ask you a question, and that is, have you ever watched a motivational video online or on TV, or a video that had a story in it that sounded similar to your own story? And as you watched the video, you felt motivated, you felt hope, and you felt moved. Maybe you thought otherwise. Maybe you thought this doesn't work. And by watching the motivational video, you felt like, okay, maybe I've tried a few things in the past and it hasn't worked, but maybe it'll work this time. So that is motivation and hope, and that is essentially the premise of this particular video. So let's dive in further. Perhaps you were going through your own struggles in life. You have a specific problem. And as I'm talking about this, I really want you to think about things that you have struggled with in your own life. And you had a specific problem, and you searched and searched and searched, and you just didn't find a solution, and you were losing hope, literally. So think back to that time. If you need to pause the video, feel free to do that, but go back in time, think about that for just a second, and think about a time where you have made up your mind that a solution does not exist, or maybe you've tried plenty of solutions and none of them worked. You see, the reason why I want you to feel that way and remember what that feels like is because that is what your prospects feel. So can you imagine if you created a video immediately selling to them, how much they would be turned off by you, or how you, in that sense, in that situation, you would be turned off if you didn't know anyone and they just immediately went to the sales pitch. So if you're in that position of disbelief and you don't believe there's hope in that area, and then somebody sells you a solution, then you are considered someone who has not made their mind up, and you're just going to walk away. So like I said, creating a sales video that goes immediately into selling, that used to work a decade ago, and it can still work if your prospect is fully aware of the solution. So we're kind of dealing with people who are not aware of the solution or not aware that there is a solution versus people who are aware that there is a solution and that you are the solution. So sending a sales video to somebody that already knows you is okay because they already know you, they already know what you provide and what you sell and how you can help them. So those might be your list, your existing customers, or people that have associated with you. But here's the reality. The reality is that that amounts to a very small percentage, oftentimes less than 10%. So your goal on this video is not to sell. Hopefully that relieves a little bit of a burden, but to give people hope that even though that they're thinking this is not working, you get to tell them that this is working, and this is working not only for me, but for other people who have tried this product. Now, you don't even have to talk about the product yet. The goal here is not to sell. The goal here is to just reveal that their mindset is opposite. There is a solution. There are possibly case studies that you have to show that this is working. Now, to better help you with this, I really want you to think for just a second. Ask yourself this question. What emotional pain does your product or service solve? Really think about that for just a second. Pause this video and just think about that. And from there, why do you think your prospect is saying blank solution is not working? So maybe as an example, somebody who has high cholesterol, and they're worried that they might be getting a heart attack. And you have a solution to help them lower their bad LDL or bad cholesterol. And they feel like, okay, I've tried this, I've tried that. I want to go the natural route. I don't want to be on pharmaceutical drugs. How do I do that on a natural route? So in this case, the emotional pain is there's no hope. I can't do this naturally. I have to go with the pharmaceutical route, which has all these other side effects and all of that. So knowing that, we know that the prospect is interested in some kind of homeopathic natural route. And at this point in time, they're looking to buy, but they've tried all these supplements and nothing is working. So, and then from there, then you ask yourself, the prospect is thinking, okay, I've tried all these natural solutions. Why is this not working? So if you have a product that will help them, or you have a guideline or system that would help them lower the cholesterol by resorting to natural avenues rather than pharmaceutical drugs, then you can tell them that. You can motivate them through that. So again, what can you tell them that will give them hope? That you can tell them, even though this is the mindset that you're having, you can totally contradict that mindset. And you can bring in the golden nugget or the secret blueprint that you discovered to help them find that solution. Now, the reason why a motivational video is so powerful is because it really disarms your audience. What it does is it breaks down their walls. When somebody listens to you immediately upon watching your video or coming to your site, they're immediately thinking, okay, what is the ulterior motive of this person? And if it's a motivational video and you're just trying to empower people, it breaks their walls down because it doesn't make them feel like you are selling. So imagine going to a car dealership and the car salesman immediately finds them, he starts selling them, he says, this is great, this and that, versus you have somebody else who comes up and says, hey, what are you looking for in a car? Okay, and the person says, yeah, I'm looking for this, I can't find this. And it's like, you know what? I know what you're looking for. So listening to the prospect is going to break down their walls. Now, obviously, a car dealership and all that is very different from a motivational video, but the point here is it just makes it so that it doesn't feel like you're selling. In fact, it's quite the opposite. So now let's talk about some practical application. Let's jump right in, and I'm going to show you a step-by-step outline of what this particular video looks like. Okay, so before we get started, I would highly recommend that as we go through this, that you either jot it down with a pen and piece of paper, or you pull out your smartphone or iPad or computer and you type it along. When you type it out, it's going to become muscle memory and you'll be able to actually create a script really, really fast. So again, video number 1, this is the motivational section. And the first thing you want to do is, of course, thank them for opting in. So remember, when they opt in, they will then see the video number 1. And then after you thank them, you tell them what they're about to learn, but you don't want to tell them everything. So in other words, you want to tell a little bit to kind of pique some curiosity, but you don't want to give everything away, if that makes sense. So say thank you for opting in. We're going to talk about this. This is what you're going to learn. And one thing I will say, when you write out a video script, asking questions, especially in the beginning, oftentimes will do really well, because what will happen is it'll invoke curiosity. People will begin to have kind of a conversation between you and them and in their heads. Next thing is, in other words, what do they have to gain by watching your video? So what is it that is going to be interesting about your video? Now, you can do all of this in kind of a story. You can jump straight into a story and insert these elements into your story. And by doing that, and by sounding more motivational, it's less likely the person is going to get their guard up and they are more likely to listen to you. Another question is, what kind of opportunity or benefit will benefit them? So what kind of opportunity or benefit will they get? And then of course I say here, jump into the story, but like I said, you can, however you wish, you can either start with the story, you can start with the question and then start jumping into the story, but you want to get as quick as you can to the story or the motivation or the hope or whatever element that is really, really quick, because then it's less likely the person will leave. Because what we found over the years is the first 10 seconds to the first minute is typically when somebody has made up their mind. Usually it's the first 10, 20 seconds. So you want to get as quick as possible into the story. Now, remember that your story is really their story, but from your point of view. So you want to make sure that as much as possible that you match up their story with your story. So in other words, if you're talking about their struggles, their pains, the things that in their mind they've lost the hope, you want to make sure that that matches up. So that's why I said, remember that your story is really their story, but from your point of view. Now, you want to keep this part less than 5 minutes, but this will be the meat of your video. So by meat, I mean the main part of your video. Or if it may not be your story, you could talk about a character and their story. Or you could pick out a client's story who went through your system or your secret product or service and got some results from that. Now, right here, the next part is only talk about areas of your story that dig into their pain, their struggles, and their day-to-day emotions. Then, from that point, move on into a state of something or state of mind that contradicts their current mindset. So where they are now, where they're thinking there is no hope, how do you get them from that state of mind to something that contradicts that says there is hope? Or I used to think like you because I went through something similar with what you went through, and now I am the opposite. Something that is controversial, something that contradicts that is actually what will suck them in and become intrigued. And then, of course, you want to teach them something, give them sort of an aha moment that supports this contradiction. And so they can walk away thinking, wow, I got something out of that. You know, you added value, you've got my trust. Another thing you want to do after that is think about the objections that you would normally get from a customer or a prospect that they would say, well, would this actually work? Think about those specific objections and try to list out about 10 because you'll need them later. But answer one of those objections in a story format where you or the character overcame this objection. The next thing you want to do is preview what's coming up in the next video, which is the educate video. Now, just to recap, if you go through this whole thing again, and feel free to pause the video at any time, but if you go through it again, make sure that you write it in story format. Now, you can mix and match. It doesn't have to be perfect. You can have it where you can have some objections, or you can have several objections. You can have whatever you think would work best for your audience. Now, if you're thinking, well, I don't really know what works best for my audience, then try this out, test it out. All right. So with that said, let's move on to video number 2, which is educate.